hyper masculinity, and it talks about healthy masculinity too, right? Like the thing is, it's not really a shift that's happening. I think what's happening is an evolution. I think guys are starting to realize that they need to find a way to identify, process, and manage these other emotions that are a part of the human experience. And we are identifying them as more female-centric, which I don't think actually is appropriate. If we want to actually eliminate these stereotypes, let's call it what it is. Guys aren't trying to be more feminine. Guys are trying to become more complete.
Oh. I love that you said that, because truly when a guy sometimes is sensitive, or even I watched Joseph with the duvet, your instinct is to associate that with femininity, instead of saying he is evolving and becoming more complete.
Well, you wouldn't say that to someone who was in the military, because they're doing the exact same thing, right? Their clothes
Making
are
their
pressed, their beds are made. Like, you would never even associate that. So it's just sometimes we look at it in a different way, and then we start to try to categorize, like, what does that mean? Is he being less of a man or more than that? And I think it's commendable that guys are willing to be messy to figure out how to get to that next level of masculinity.
I love that you made the military point. My dad was in the military and the Army for almost 30 years, made his bed every day. My mother does not cook, never. Sorry, I'm just telling your business, Mary. My dad cooked every meal for us. My dad kept a meticulous pantry in a house, but he was also a master sergeant in the military. So no one ever associated his baking the best sweet potato pie in the world with femininity.
It's true.
He was complete.
And we're starting to see that men are willing to put themselves, let me just take a moment here and also talk, because I know we talk about this idea of vulnerability. I would like to call it out. I don't think vulnerability is the right word to use, because when you think about vulnerability, your mind immediately goes to the idea that you're gonna get hurt. And it defeats the purpose. When guys think about, I don't wanna be vulnerable, of course you don't, because you don't wanna get hurt.
Yeah.
So let's replace vulnerability with authenticity.
Strong and wild, we rise up high. Conquer fears, won't let them reside. Heartbeats pound as we take the dive. Living now feels so alive. Heart steel veins glowing bright. Fitness gone in the dead of night. Fading game, we got the sight. Crushing finance, career out of sight. Man up now, we own it true. Breaking change, just me and you. Success stories everywhere. Living life beyond compare.
What a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday we have, with another of the Thrive in 2025 series with our good friend, Thomas Edwards, the Professional Wingman. What is going on, man?
What's up, fellas? It's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a minute. I've seen you've been doing a lot of different stuff, and especially right there with the Tamron Hall Show. That was fantastic. I know, like, back in the day, you've been on Steve Harvey as well, and you've done a lot of different media appearances. And I know you've worked with Josh before, with all the different types of coaching stuff. But I want you to go ahead and, for those who don't know you, just give yourself and you don't have to be humble. You can tell everybody all the different facets of what you've done and what you do.
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know me, my name is Thomas Edwards, founder of the Professional Wingman. I would say today I am a life advisor, consultant, strategist, a wingman for your confidence to be able to live the life that you ultimately want. And I've been doing this for over 16 years. And like Hud said, I was recently on the Tamron Hall Show, which you guys got to see, and been on Steve Harvey. Been in over, I don't know, at this point, maybe 500 plus media outlets around the world. Been on TV a bunch. Worked with thousands of guys, varying from high achieving professionals to CEOs, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, you name it, helping them do all kinds of stuff, like get married, which I'm responsible for well over 400 of them, and currently at 0 divorces. So batting 1,000 there. But also just helping these guys live the life that they feel like they're meant to live beyond just the relationships, right? And I think one of the things that I'm focusing on these days, as you can see, is that there's another level that I think guys are pursuing, and we're starting to see the tricklings of what it could potentially look like at the next level. And I want to be able to help men like you who are watching now be able to cultivate and harness and develop that potential, so you can not just live the best life that you can today, but to create a generational reverb that can affect your kids and your kids' kids and your kids' kids' kids. So that is me in a nutshell.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, no, it's very interesting, like especially when you were talking about when we talk about evolving masculinity, and we're looking at like kind of things you were saying, like vulnerability versus how did you say it? Sorry, my brain's
Authenticity.
Authenticity, exactly. And you know what? I think that's totally fine. One thing that I've noticed recently as I've developed and as we talk different levels, there's one thing when it comes to like pickup artistry and like getting the girl. But then when you're actually in the relationship, it's like a completely different story. And so there have been times where, I mean, have you guys ever seen Encanto?
I haven't.
Yep.
No.
So
you guys got to get on some date nights, man. It's a good one.
Yeah, exactly. That was the very first time that I just started bawling my eyes out in front of my girl. And that didn't make her less attracted to me. Instead, it showed her, it was a representation of that, like, I really am a true, authentic human being, and I have feelings and I care about certain things. And so I thought that was really interesting when you phrased it that way on the show, that vulnerability doesn't necessarily, let's get rid of that word because there's a negative connotation there. Yeah. So I really love that.
Yeah, man. I mean, you always see the segment for what it is because it happens so fast, right? And I'm always willing to go deeper if the time was there, right? But if you really look up the definition, I pulled it up here just for reference, right? If you just type in vulnerable definition in Google, here's what comes up. Of a person in need of special care, support, or protection because of age, disability, or risk of abuse or neglect. Then there's another definition here, which is a partnership liable to higher penalties, either by convention or through having one game toward a rubber, which is odd. But let's see. The etymology of the word, right, comes from Latin, and it literally means to wound. It means to hurt, right? So it makes sense that you want to use this word, or maybe it's been marketed as the word to use to define men putting themselves out there. But we know intuitively what that word means. And so every time we're saying it, the first thing we're thinking about is hurt. Hurt. Because that is what the word means. And that's not what we're trying to do. Right. And so that moment that you had where, like, and I've been there too, man, like, you know, when we are overcome with emotion, just like any other human being, we are susceptible for tears. Like, right. We're susceptible to express these emotions. What's really important is that we need to understand the context in which these emotions are coming out. If you were crying, for example, and you were bitching and complaining about how life is against you, and you feel like you can't overcome anything, and you just feel so just victim to life, I imagine your girl would look at you a little bit differently from that context. Mm-hmm. But if you're connecting from a place of resolve, from a place of just deep emotional connection, right? Like the kind of love that I could speak to about the love of my daughter, right? Like this is the same love that would make me go out and kill someone for her, right? We've already been demonetized because I just said that, right? So,
yeah, so whatever,
right? So like, it's the very same energy where that comes from. right? And so context matters in which these emotions are being used. We can't just like blanket it and just think, oh, well, this guy's crying, so he's less of a man, right? Like there are situations where you use crying as a form of trying to cover your weakness. But I think for a lot of guys who are afraid to express it, they don't realize that that expression is actually from a source of strength.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. And it makes me think back. I had my first client end up getting married this past year. And so I went to his wedding, and dude, I bawled my eyes out. I did. But it's just tears of joy, and it's just the overwhelming emotion that you were able to help somebody in that fashion. And yeah, no, she didn't view it as weakness at all. Instead, it was strength, and it was, wow, like this really happened. You know, because when you first step into any type of business or any type of endeavor, you never think that you're going to actually be able to get it done. You have that self-doubt. And so it's like a celebration, a celebratory type of expression of emotions. And I think that even being able to express that and express it in the right way, it makes you even more attractive.
I would agree with that for sure. You know, and here's the thing. If you're someone who is not used to expressing yourself, then one, it's going to be uncomfortable. And two, its execution may not be perfect, right? And so you have to risk a little bit of messiness in order to really refine your awareness of your emotions. And that's why it's so important to be aware and conscious of who you're actually practicing the expression of these emotions with, right? If you're around men who you trust and know will like you'll go to battle with, that could be a safe place for you to do that, knowing that there aren't markers of betrayal. If you're doing it in front of someone a woman that you've gone on 3 dates with, probably not the best timing, right? And so it's just understanding who you're allowing yourself to be this version of yourself with. And by the way, this version of yourself is probably the most real version, which is why I love using the word authentic, because that's genuine, right? Like, I always think about, for me, when I think about authenticity, I think of one of none, right? Like nothing can be, like I cannot be replicated, right? And the only way that's possible is if I devote myself to being 100% myself, right? So part of that is the expression of emotions. And the only reason why I'm able to even speak this way is because I spent a lot of time becoming emotionally literate, and then being able to understand and identify my emotions, journaling and processing those emotions to understand where they come from, right? And then learning how to express them and articulate them in a way that other people can understand. So I'm not speaking from a place where I expect people who are just starting out to be able to do this from the jump. But what I'm saying is you can get to a place where you can be able to express and articulate your emotions as clearly and as definitively as you can, so people can relate to you and understand you better.
Yeah, and I think something really important that you tapped on there was the idea around the context, right? Which is, if you're, again, sitting there crying down on yourself, like, feeling that the world is really against you and you can't overcome, really what that does is it's signaling, right, is that you are, coming from that place of weakness, but also coming from a place of not being able to handle yourself in a way that you can express yourself appropriately at the appropriate times, right? So, another example of like, pure elation, right, is the classic image of when Michael Jordan's holding his very first NBA trophy, right, and he's just crying and like overwhelmed, right? But it's like everything that went into that, behind that, like the full struggle and then getting to the very top and being able to like just let the weight off the shoulders. It's like, okay, yes, that's like a true place of authenticity. So, I think the broader point that you touched on there was pretty spot on about it really does. The context is really, really, really important when it comes to expressing these things and how you express them, because they definitely can be a good benefit to being a more, integrated and complete person, but also more emotionally mature. But they can also work to your detriment if they are signaling that you do have that emotional immaturity within yourself. And that's a tough part for guys, especially to navigate, because, you know, there is that sort of blanket term that vulnerability just gets thrown across everything, right? So sometimes guys are too afraid, where it's like, oh, dude, I'm, you know, at my best friend's funeral, but I can't cry. It's like, bro, you probably should, because, you know, it's justified cause there. So, you know, I think it's, you know, that fear factor sometimes that keeps guys from, you know, properly expressing these things. So they just kind of get bottled up, and they wind up manifesting themselves in ways that aren't constructive.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with a lot of that. And, you know, coming from an Army background, being an Army veteran, you know, you're supposed to, you get instilled that you're supposed to have this stoicism about you, almost a meanness. But when I really opened my eyes when I read the book Models by Mark Manson, how he explained vulnerability as not a negative, and for a man, and it goes perfect with how you put it, Thomas, is being authentic. You know, always expressing what you expect, your needs, your wants, what you can give in an authentic manner, is that's a form of vulnerability that men kind of look past, because like you said, vulnerability comes with a negative connotation. You know, it's almost, I'm opening myself up to get hurt. However, if you can look past that and use vulnerability as a way to just be honest all the time, then it can definitely work to your advantage. And it's a good attribute for a man to learn.
Absolutely. Right. And you hit something pretty good, Kevin, when we talk about stoicism, right? Like, you know, stoicism, when I think about it, I think about the concept of not letting your emotions influence your decision making. There's nothing in there that talks about not having emotions. Right? There's nothing in there that talks about putting those emotions and stuffing them down. Right. And so it's a philosophy that allows us to navigate life and particularly life's challenges. Right. Like it's a much different experience making decisions from an emotional place than you can from a reasonable place. And as someone who has spent time in the military, like, you know, I'm sure from firsthand experience, what could happen if you don't have a stoic philosophy when you have to make split-second decisions, right? And so, you know, we have these terms, as Josh talked about, that we throw around, and once again, it's marketed as a particular thing, as if it's like, you know, like cereal now with, you know, with whole grains, right? And it's like, that's not what this is about, right? Like, masculinity has so many different facets, and I believe, like, we've been on this planet long enough where we can talk about its evolution and where the path is meant to go, so men can become, I on the spot I said complete, right? But like, we could even call it like the Superman, right? Like, that sounds like a pretty cool marketable term, right? Like, I want to be a Superman, a man who is balanced both in its authority, but it's an empathy. Like, that excites me, right? Like, imagine the leadership of that next generation that can live and take action and make decisions and care for their people and their country from that powerful, empathetic space. Like, the possibilities are limitless. And I think it's important for us to, the only way to get there is for us to dive in and explore it in its grandeur and in its inevitable messiness on the road there.
I would agree with that. Yeah. And it's really interesting. Why is Trump president right now? Well, because we have swung the pendulum too far. Trump is that get it done, hardcore type of attitude. And really what we need is somebody who's a little bit more stoic and maybe not as aggressive, but it has had to come to that point because we have gotten here. And I don't quite understand it. I don't quite understand like why we've ended up here, but we have. And so it's been very interesting to see. And like, Thomas, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Why do you think it is that we've kind of lost that when we're talking about evolving masculinity? Like, what is a man even supposed to be today? Because if you're like Trump and you're very aggressive, then you're terrible. If you are the opposite of that and you're a complete pushover, well, then you're just a pussy and nobody respects you, but they won't tell you they don't respect you. Like, everybody is confused. What is causing this?
Well, everyone is confused, and so, but we're also being. I think we're also being forced to choose and devote to one side, right? And so, if we can't be perfect, we must be like terribly flawed, right? Like, there's no in between. So even someone who can present themselves as the best option will still be heavily criticized, right? Because and here's something that I was thinking about even before we came on today, right? Like, I always talk about this idea of living an iconic life, right? Like, what is the meaning of iconic anyways, right? And it's basically I define it as when your family, your peers, your colleagues, and your community regard you from a high level of respect and honor and awe based on how you live your life. It's not about necessarily what you do. That does play a role in it, but it's how you live your life and how you represent yourself. And even from that place, there's always going to be room for criticism, right? But like, what I was thinking about is like, people love icons because they followed their dreams and they were relentless in the pursuit of their dreams, right? And on the other side of that, there are many people who hate those icons for the very same reason. So within that, there's going to be confusion. There's going to be this idea that, oh my gosh, like, this person, who are they to believe that they can run the country? Who are they to believe that they can be my boss? Who are they to believe that they can earn more money than me, or they get to make that kind of money and not contribute to a high level to our community? Like, there's always going to be this thing. And I realized that the advent of social media has allowed people to believe that they have authority over their commentary of how people should live their lives. and so because of that, I don't want to necessarily say they're wrong. I don't necessarily want to say that they are, what's the way I would phrase it? I'm sorry, let me take that back there. That is what has created the confusion, right? Like, you can comment on how someone's living their life and that it actually means something, that person should actually pay attention to what they've done, even though that person has done nothing in their lives, right? A great example could be if you put up a video and someone comments and talks nonsense on your YouTube channel, and you look and that person.
What are you talking about? No, what are you talking about? That's never happened.
Internet comment section? What? People trolling? What? No.
Exactly, right? And you go and you look and they haven't posted one video, right? Like, they don't even have a picture on there, right? Like, who is that person to even think that they can hold a candle to anything that I'm doing? I want to see what value you bring into the world, and then we can have a conversation. But people think just because they comment that inherently it makes them valuable, that inherently that they bring value, and that is just not true, not in the digital world. And that's what makes people confused, because they confuse the digital world with the real world.
Yeah. That's good too, because of that the digital world gave us access, right? Where now it's like, rewind the clock back 20 years ago, me and whoever politician, someone super famous, whatnot, the probability of us bumping into each other or having some type of access is, very, very difficult pathway and trajectory. Then all of a sudden social media platforms come out. It's like, oh, this person, I can directly interact with them because they got their blue check mark and everything, and they're doing a live story and whatnot, and I can comment directly or whatnot. So, providing that sort of direct access for sure has contributed to this split reality between the digital world versus the actual real world. And I think to your broader point, being able to try to delineate between the two of those things, it can definitely be very, very tricky, because it's hard as humans, right? Where we see this highlight reel of social media that we have out there. And, some people's highlight reels are far more awesome than other people's highlight reels. But at the same time, it's like, this is not 100% of reality happening all the time. Like, these are cherry-picked, hand-picked moments that are there, because real life has so many more dimensions to it. But it is very easy to get sort of sucked into the, online world and online reality when you just have so much access to it.
Wait, so you're saying you're not flying a jet plane right now?
I mean, these are my you guys are my wingmen, right? There's 3 here, so I got this background for you.
I love it. Well, I think too, like what you were talking about, Thomas, with the comments on somebody else's content or something like that, it gives the people to make their comment without repercussion, because first you got to wait for that person to see it and maybe they'll comment back, and then you can get in your little keyboard war. But having that ability to critique, press your views without repercussion, I think is a bad thing for some people, especially the trolls, because in their mind, it's giving them power. And then also, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but the inability to have a conversation and maybe even come to a happy medium has kind of went away. A lot of people, they have their beliefs, whatever they may be. And if you disagree with that, they get ad hominem and they start calling names and this, that, and the other. And there's no dialogue to come to an agreement to actually talk it out and have the ability to, you don't have to agree with them, but at least respect that other person's stance. And that's, well, even in the real world, that has become a big problem, I think, because you look at these protests and, I'm not going to name what these protests are, but you got this side over here and you got this side over here, and nothing this side can say will make this side agree with anything. It's just a yelling back and forth, and then everybody leaves mad, or a fight breaks out or something like that. And I think it's more masculine to have the ability to actually listen to somebody else that has opposing views. And like I said, you don't have to agree with them, but you can come to a happy understanding on both sides to where you walk away not hating each other. And that's one thing that society is really lacking, because you don't have repercussions for your views when you put them on somebody else's plate, so to speak, through the ways of a comment.
Yeah.
That's where empathy comes in, right? If you don't have an ability to understand or find a way to relate to the other side, then you're essentially cutting off the ability to connect with that other person. So whether or not you agree with someone is actually irrelevant to the higher point of trying to create connection that can elevate your partnership with that person or the community as a whole. Like, guys, Apple and Microsoft were not enemies. They were marketed as such, but you don't think Bill Gates and Steve Jobs sat in a room on a quarterly or bi-monthly basis to talk about business and finding ways where they can actually elevate their companies together? Like, if you didn't think that was not happening, like, you've been living under a rock. Like, this is what happens at the highest levels. Like, it's not us against them or them against other people. They're all working together. And you can either call it collusion, which is one perspective you can take from a point of criticism or cynicism or a negative, or you can take the principle of what they're doing, which is they're collaborating for a higher purpose. What can you do to replicate that at your level of the game, as opposed to criticizing what they're doing? Like, unless you have had experience in that arena, or you are venturing to go into that arena to make a change, like, you have no position to make any comments about what they are doing or not doing. Stay in your lane and learn from what you're seeing and create a better situation with where you're at. But like, most people don't want to hear that. It's much easier to complain about what they're seeing and not liking and criticizing them, because it makes them feel like they're doing something when the reality is they're not doing anything. And I'm not saying this from a place of judgment or criticism of those people who are doing it. I used to be one of those people, so I can relate to this so well, because I used to be that person. And what changed for me was that I realized when I was complaining for months on end, or if I was criticizing other people for what they were doing and what they should or should not have done, whether it was sports or politics or finances, at some point I looked at my life and realized my life hadn't changed for several months. And those people who I'm criticizing don't even know that I exist.
They don't care.
So they could care less about what I think about them. And it just made me realize that I just need to really focus on myself and what I can do, you know? And so, and then pay attention to the people who actually are in position to give me feedback, like my mentors or other colleagues who are in the industries, or you guys as my peers, right? Like anything else outside of that, from people who aren't qualified or have zero experience, and they don't matter, but they want to matter so bad. And because the opportunity of social media has created that, that's what they will rather do, because that's the lowest hanging fruit, you know? And so I don't want to derail the conversation, you know, going back to masculinity, like this is where all of this comes into play. Because when you think you're being aggressive and you're showing that you're being assertive in your commenting and your stance and your criticism of people, like you're actually not showing strength. You're exposing your weakness by your inability to actually go out and do something about it to create change. And a lot of people don't even realize that that's what they're projecting more so than what they think they are.
Yeah, it's very interesting how with the advent of social media, because we all of us right here, we have been around far before all this stuff existed. And it's weird how seeing those comments and seeing those interactions still hit us the same way as if it was somebody like on the street, but it's not. It's just the random person who is, yes, exposing their weakness, but trying to figure out ways to attack us. It's almost like a weird version of like the devil when you kind of think about it. And when you're able to have the resilience against it, that's when you can evolve that masculinity and actually grow to what you want to do. When I tell people that I do this, like this conversation we're having right here, there's a lot of people in my life that laughed at me. And that's fine. You can laugh all you want. As long as I change one person's life, it was all worth it. And we're doing far more than that.
Yeah. And that's something that can be a challenge, you know, like that video that you posted, I can almost guarantee there's a comment that criticizes something about me. Not what I said, but just about me, maybe my appearance.
Yeah, who's this dude? What makes him credible?
Maybe my appearance, what I was wearing, that jacket, his hair.
Yeah, the pink jacket. What's that all about? Dude, that actually looks great, by the way. I love that jacket.
Thanks, man. Yeah, you know, but like, and I would say like, and the reason why I'm mentioning this, because if I were to see that comment now, like its impact on me pales in comparison to what it used to be. I mean, I remember when my wife and I got married, 2014, we were in the New York Times, and they did a whole video. They had like the vows, you know, series, and that I forget how many views this got. Like, I don't know, at least 500,000 views or something like that. And so 2014, right? So that's 11 years ago. I was 29, 28 years old. Thinking like, at that point, I'm thinking like I'm invincible. Like I'm on top of the world. Business is going great. I just got married. Like life is good. And then my dumbass would like look at the comments, hoping that I would see so much congratulations. Like what a beautiful couple, you know, just riding the wave of just my wedded bliss. And I did see some of that. And then there were other just terrible comments. Like he's going to cheat on her, or it won't be your baby, or like it was like it totally caught my wife off guard, right? But it also caught me off guard. I mean, it was my first real experience of being exposed to the viciousness of social media in the comment section, you know? And I'm so glad that happened, because it's totally prepared and hardened me to be able to share the messages that I'm able today. And not worry about what other people are going to say, because I know the people who are going to comment not on what I say, but how I look, how I live, they actually don't have any stance to like prove a point.
Yeah.
And I've learned that by reading the negative comments. There has been no comment that I've received that was negative, that was about what I said in anything that I've noticed that I've written or have been in. There hasn't been anything that was like legitimate. Oh, like that may be debatable. I should like comment on that. Right. Like, you know,
well, I think that's one of the most important things is, you know, you show your masculinity by not falling into their trap, not responding to all the negative comments out there. And it's hard for some people to do. Would be hard for me to do 20 years ago. You know, I was such a hothead and thought, oh, I need to make my point back to them. But now you show that if you don't respond, you don't throw fuel on that fire, it goes away. It puts out, and you know, and that's the biggest disrespect to them, because that's all they want, especially when they get ad hominem, like we were talking earlier. And, you know, to Josh's point, and I think Mr. Justin in the comments touched on it, you know, when it comes to business, politics, and all that kind of stuff, all a lot of people see is the arguments that are going on the Senate floor, but they don't see when it's over and they adjourn, they all go play golf together. They go to lunch together. You know, it's just like in a courtroom. You know, TV makes it look like the prosecutor and the other, you know, the judge and all, they all hate each other, but they all work together every day. So after the gavel falls and the verdict's read, they all go have lunch together. The judge, the prosecutor, and the other attorney, you know, they're all, so you don't see that. So you think that, oh yeah, they really hate each other, but it doesn't work that way. And once you realize that, then you can start building a path of not worrying about everybody else around you and start focusing on yourself, like you said.
Yeah. You see it in professional sports, right? Like, you know, the NFL is a company and they have, you know, thousands of employees, but particularly these athletes, they all work for the NFL. They all work for the same job, the same like company. And yeah, like they compete on teams and they face each other. And yes, there's sportsmanship at the end of the game and maybe at the end of the season. But then you notice like on social media, they're going out and they're playing golf, like Kevin said, right? And like they're having dinner and they're doing all kinds of stuff. It's because like it's just a sport. They actually have solid relationships outside of their profession. And the same thing happens in politics, happens so much in business, like so much in business and in so many different levels, right? Like you see the production. I also compare it to like WWE, right? Like there's always going to be like a good guy and a bad guy. And because that story is what gets people excited about what's going to happen and it makes them watch. But they both leave the same ring. They go up the same ramp. They go through the same gorilla position and then they hug and say, man, that was a really good match. Good job, man. You did great out there. And then they go in the locker room and they go hang out. Like that is what that is what's actually going on in life, right? But a lot of people get caught up in watching the spectacle and thinking that is real when in reality it's not. You know, and I think part of masculinity is having the discernment to be able to see through that and know what's real and know what's not, and be able to extract the things that it need, like from the real of what you need as principles that you can apply to level up your life and help other people, and not get caught up in what's not real. You know,
and you know what? So, I think that's, and sorry, Josh, I'm gonna let you go in a second. I think that's one of the things that is very interesting, that whether it be raised by single mothers or being raised by absent fathers, we don't tend to have that discernment. So when somebody is criticizing us, instead of understanding that it's, you know, either joking or coming from a place of love, we always view it as an attack. And I think that that is the evolving of masculinity that needs to happen, is to understand that people are not doing this just to get at you or to tear you down. Sometimes they're just trying to share something with you that maybe could be beneficial for you. And I know I've noticed that myself. And that's what's hard, is because I used to still get pissed about those comments that I would get. Those random hateful comments that, as you said, Thomas, are not about the content or what is being said, but it's about you. It's personal attacks. And then as soon as I was able to adopt that mindset and understand that, decipher what the attack, where the attack is coming from. If I can understand where the attack is coming from, most of the times I can figure out, okay, it's coming from a place of weakness. It's coming from a place of tearing me down. It's the crabs in the bucket analogy, essentially. Don't like seeing somebody else succeed. And so as soon as you do that, then you're able to step forward. And I think that is what's missing right now today.
When it comes to negative comments, my thing is like, guys, just be creative. Because sometimes there are some pretty awesomely creative ones where you're like, all right, that you get a point for that. That was well done. So if you're going to do it, then put some effort into it. But, Thomas, it was interesting that you mentioned, the 2014 version of yourself. And so speaking of the evolution of masculinity, how would you say yours personally has evolved, especially from that 2014 side? Because I think I met you in 2015, 2016, like right after that. So, what was that evolution like for yourself from where you were there to where you are now?
It's a great question, man. Remember I mentioned it was, I said it jokingly, but this was the truth, man. Like I felt invincible. And at that point in the game, I hadn't faced significant adversity. So when I did start to face adversity, which was of my own doing, it was me allowing my imposter syndrome to take over my judgment and my belief in myself. When that came and took over, it changed the direction of my life, because it made me realize like I'm not as strong as I put myself out to be, because I'm getting rattled pretty easily. Like I could put on a good face, I could put on a good show, but when I'm sitting by myself, like I'm not seeing myself as that person that I'm putting out there. So what's going on? So that was the first point where I realized like something's got to give. And I was not in alignment with myself, right? The person I was putting out there was not the same person that I was feeling when the lights were off, or I was by myself and I was at home. And I struggled with that. And I avoided a lot of the stuff that I needed to go into for years. And so even when I met you, Josh, like I was still putting on that front. And honestly, there's some parts of that front that I'm grateful for, because it created opportunities like meeting you, right? And so, and us becoming, best friends, right? So like that has its own gifts, but on the other side of it, like I struggled with identity. I struggled with belief in myself and being able to maintain the level of success that I was creating for myself, and then becoming a father and struggling with that identity. I mean, the life that I built and the identity that I built was so fragile, and I had no clue until I got the first ding, and that ding shattered everything that I thought was true, or was hoping that other people wouldn't see. And that led me down a dark road. I mean, drugs, alcohol, escapism, just like depression, like the whole thing. And when push came to shove and I ended up, getting sober and doing recovery programs and just getting my life back, it was in that I started to understand the importance of learning how to be resilient through identifying my emotions, processing them, and learning how to better manage them, right? And because the truth that I realized is that I'm not in control of what people are going to do. And then previous me thought I could influence people to do whatever I want. But I'm not in control of what people do. And no one can make me feel anything. I allow them to make me feel a certain way. And so I had to start changing a lot of my programming that allowed me to show up better for myself first, and then show up better for my wife, better for my daughter, better for you guys as my friends, like better for my clients. Like it just started to grow over time. So I would say, from 2014 up to 2019 was just kind of it was a shit show. I mean, I was in the darkest stages of my life because I had built a story in my mind that was false. And I allowed it to be based on what I thought others needed me to be. And then once 2019 hit and I started to really understand and kind of venture into rediscovering who I really was at that time, that's when all these things started to come up and get clear for me. And then since then, I've just been developing that muscle over time, developing the muscle of integrity, developing the muscle of discernment, developing the muscle of expression, verbally, physically, developing, like I said, emotional intelligence, emotional literacy, learning practices of how to manage my emotions. Like, these are all things that I not learned once. Like, it's a continuous practice. And the more I do it, the stronger I get. So who I am today and who you saw show up on Tamron Hall, but like, that was the strongest version. It's been like the strongest version of myself that has shown up to this point, because I constantly develop this. And because of that, I'm more secure in myself. I feel I'm incredibly much more attractive as an individual than I've ever been. And I have so much value to bring. And so and this is why I like talk about, like, confidence is so key, but confidence and masculinity go hand in hand. The more masculine you feel, I think the more confident you feel. And there's so many values inside of masculinity that are so important for guys to learn. And to your point, the last thing I'll say is, when you don't have that influence in the house to have it nurtured, it does create a slight setback unless you're able to find a proper source of mentorship that can develop you in those formidable years to be where you're at. I think it's super important. My dad was there, and I consider him a very strong masculine man. I just, for whatever reason, allowed myself to be influenced by people outside of my house and not in my house. So that was on me, but having that person as you grow up is so key.
Yeah, that's a huge point. And I've actually been having discussions with my family recently, because personally, my dad was pretty absent growing up. And I noticed that I was kind of brainwashed into the way that my mom wanted things, which was to me not be a problem, which then led to unnecessary medications and multiple different things that went on when I was growing up. And if I just had that strong leadership then, I couldn't imagine where I would end up. However, I'm still thankful that I went through those experiences, because it made me realize what you're realizing as you're explaining that, realizing that something's off. And when you go brute force, well, maybe brute force isn't the best phrasing, but let's stick with it. When you go brute force into who you are and what you believe in, then everything can change. I mean, hell, with my girl, we've been together over 4 years. I mean, we are getting married. This is all just kind of set in stone, and it's fantastic. I love her to death. That only happened on that first date when I shared with her that I had been playing a random Korean video game for 7 years. And I was like super high up in the ranks, and I loved it. And what she loved about it, and about me being like unapologetically, this is me, is that the passion and the identity of self, because I had that strong identity of self, that's what really, really, really attracted her to me. And I just think it's brilliant. And I mean, you can see right now, Thomas, I didn't have all these Legos before, but now I got so much. This place is a mess. I got one that I'm building right now, but I got my Futurama ship right here with Doc Ock and Spider-Man hanging off it. Got the Daily Bugle, got the X Mansion. I got so much stuff, and I just love it. It's a brilliant representation of who I am, and I'm going to stand by it. You got a problem with my Legos? Then this can't work. But I just love myself. Once you love the self, when we think about like a lot of different relationships, and that's why I put it in the description. So you've got your personal relationships, your romantic relationships, your professional relationships, and then you have the relationship with self. Once you have that relationship with self down, you can do anything. It's truly how I feel about it.
Yeah. When I work with my clients, we talk about, most of my clients that I work with are married. They have kids, right? They work in a intense line of work of some kind, right? They're high performers, entrepreneurs, small business owners. The thing that I help them understand how to ground themselves in, and I'm not going to take credit for this. I'm actually going to give a shout out to Garrett White, who's the founder of Wake Up Warrior. He introduced this concept to me. I've now passed it along to other people. But it's these 4 experiences that you want to create every week. 1 is with your wife. 2 is with your kid or kids, right? Having dates with your kids, just you know, daddy, daughter dates for me. The 3rd one is with you as a collectively as a family. But the 4th one, while it's the last one, I believe is the most important one, is that it's the date with yourself. Because at the end of the day, like, none of this would have happened if it didn't start with you. And when you take on more responsibility in your life, go back to, masculinity and the weight of the pressure of responsibility and how you're able to manage it and how you express it and hold it in and not hold it in, and all this other stuff that I think a lot of people are going through as we speak right now. When I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. that solo date, right? Like, when you're taking that date and you're spending time with yourself, like, you're giving yourself the opportunity to reconnect and rediscover, like, who you are, right? So HUDs, like with the Lego projects, like, I love it. It's a way to connect with yourself in a creative outlet, right? And for me, and this has always been controversial because of the nature of this, but for me, it has always been video games. And I have such an interesting journey with video games because video games has never been a place of escapism for me. Video games has always been a place to explore ideas, to tap into a part of my brain that can activate levels of creativity and expression that, that I didn't know that I had access to otherwise. And it's always been that way for me as a kid, so much so that I wanted to go into the industry and be a producer for video games. That wasn't how my path turned out. But when I was running my business in my early 20s, I allowed external stories from other people saying that, you're the professional wingman. You can't be being caught playing video games. Like, playing video games isn't cool. Like, a wingman doesn't do that, right? Like, you're too busy. Like, you're an entrepreneur. You shouldn't be spending time playing video games, right? Like, I allowed other people's story to become my own. And then I kept an integral part of my life, like, away because of that. And kind of what Josh was asking, one of the critical pieces of 2019, when I started the journey to discover myself, it started by picking up the controller. It started by being able to reconnect with the one passion that never betrayed me, never abandoned me, had always gave me access to a higher level of myself, and that I never abused, by the way. Like, I think that's really important because I know, hiding and escaping in video games is a real thing and that needs to be addressed. That changed everything for me. My entire philosophy is built on gaming principles that can allow you to level up your confidence in your life. Like, without that experience, I wouldn't be where I'm at today with the conviction that I have today, And so having those solo dates and those times for yourself to be with yourself and do things with yourself, I think is so, so important. And it doesn't matter how much responsibilities you have, carving out a little of that space, I can tell you, has transformed the lives of so many of my clients for that reason.
I think that's the greatest tech and commercial I've ever heard in my life.
That's true.
Profoundly, deeply profoundly true statement there, sir.
Well, it's funny, right? Like, when I started playing, I don't know if people probably don't even know this, right? But like, when I got back into video games, I needed to create a structure to ensure that I would never allow external influence tell me that playing video games was not a good idea. So what I decided to do is I actually tried to pursue becoming a professional gamer. And the game that I had played was Tekken. So I had to train, right? I had to train. I had to compete in online tournaments. I actually was able to compete in an in-person tournament. It was pretty cool. Placed really well for a first timer, you know. But that whole experience for me just proved that there was so much value in allowing myself to have that experience, because I showed up more disciplined as a person because of the training that I had to do. I became much better at making split-second decisions because of the live competition I had to be in. It taught me how to show up better for myself and how to bounce back when I, lost a round or was knocked out of a tournament. Like, there were so many things in that experience that I now still use in my life that allows me to show up as the husband, the father, and the businessman that I am. So whatever that is for you, it could be video games, could be Legos, could be paint, could be pottery, could be botany, like sneakers, who cares? Like, whatever that passion is, even if it's not related to what you're doing to produce money, like, allow yourself to have that, because it's going to allow you to tap into something inside of you that only you have access, that's unique to you, that then you can then use to better your life and those around you.
Yeah, and Josh, I know you got to jump soon, so I wanted to give you the floor real quick, but I wanted to elaborate on that, Thomas.
No, I will take this time to wish you all again, great stream. Unfortunately, I have to bounce to a prior commitment, but again, fantastic conversation. I'll turn it over to you, Kevin and Huds, to continue this conversation. But yeah, everybody pay attention. It's been great being here, being a part of it, and can't wait to get on another stream with you again soon in the near future, guys.
Always a pleasure.
Great, love you, bro.
Love you too, bro.
So yeah, Thomas, what I wanted to elaborate on, you, like you said, it's the last one, having that date with yourself. And it is the most important. And especially for men that are confused out there, that are stuck in the trap of work, home, sleep, rinse, repeat, doesn't do much on the weekends. I think it's very important, if you don't have that established with yourself, take some time to figure that out and be honest with yourself and figure out the things that do motivate you outside of work, outside of family, just you as Kevin. What is, I don't like the word passion, but what are the things that bring you satisfaction, joy, that you can do for yourself? And a lot of guys don't even have that. And so establishing that and figuring that out first will only basically a domino effect to all the other things in your life to get better. Because now that you've found a peace, you found a satisfaction, you found something that you can do with yourself, for yourself, that makes you happy. And like you said, whatever it may be, maybe golf, maybe going to the gym, maybe pottery, anything that, and try different things till you find something that really motivates you to want to be better at that. Because once you find something that motivates you to want to be better at that, it'll motivate you to want to be a better husband, a better father, a better professional. And that can only, for lack of a better term, like we talk about, help you evolve, create your own evolution into your own masculine identity.
And you know what, Thomas, I want to ask you this question. This is a tough one because I struggle with it all the time. For a guy who doesn't even know what their passion is, how do they even get started to find it?
It's great. I mean, yeah, of course it's going to be a tough question, right? Like, people, once again, like, people have this, I don't know, maybe someone out there has told them, or something that they've read that made them feel like they needed to find their passion or find their purpose, right? Like, as if there's only one to have, right? And like, the truth is, you can have multiple. If you're going to live a long time, you're going to have multiple passions. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to have more than one purpose in your life too. Like, my purpose changed the moment I became a dad, right? Just as my purpose changed when I started the Professional Wingman, right? Like, your purpose just changes over time. But going back to your passion, like, let's take a step back, right? Like, let's not talk about what you love. Let's talk about what you like. I had this conversation with the client earlier today, and we were talking about the things that he wanted to work on. And he talked about, he's moving. So he was talking about, getting all this stuff together to move. And he had one action item around his business, and he had one action item around, taking his family out and just creating a fun memory. And he does this. He likes to talk about what he wants to do for everything else, and he leaves himself last, right? And I was like, dude, I'm not gonna let you get away with it. Like, what are you gonna do for yourself? He's like, that's always hard for me. I'm like, well, what lights you up? What do you like to do? And he spit off 12 things. And I'm like, well, go do one of those things. You don't have to have a passion. Passions aren't they aren't acquired like you're buying groceries. They're formed through experiences. So go out and experience things. Even if you don't know what you like, what are you curious? What do you think you might like? You can start from that level and explore what could be something that you could enjoy. And kind of what Kevin said, I think for a lot of guys, what really helps is if they're curious, if they can get better, and that there's some level of competition involved, whether it's with themselves or with others. That's a good formula for finding something that can become a hobby or even a passion, right? And so I think passion sets a bar that could be really high, that makes people not even want to pursue it because they feel like the thing that they have to do needs to be something that they love. But if they don't know that, don't start there. Start with what you like. See if it's something that motivates you to want to keep doing it. And even if you don't know that, then go back to, well, what are you curious about maybe liking? And then think about that formula, right? Do you like it? Can you get better at it? And there's a little bit of competition involved. It's a good formula there.
Mhm.
I think that's great advice. Yeah, because I find with myself, coming back to the whole Legos thing, I love that growing up. And it's crazy when we talk about past trauma and how people tell you what your life is instead of you knowing it yourself. I used to love, and when I do a Lego set, I can sit down and I can go straight for 8 hours, no problem. I just love it. There's just something about it. There's something cathartic, and it hits something in my brain, which is as you were talking about. And what that's done, the creativity side, is then creating a lot of custom types of things. I got a lot of custom pieces that I use now to decorate certain stuff, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's brilliant. And when I was growing up, my mom used to she made this whole thing in that I would go away, I would hide away from the family to do Legos because I was depressed. Granted, that was not true, but I was shamed for wanting to do something like that, even though it's just a different way of thinking and a different way of enjoying something. And that was really difficult for me. So I think breaking out of that, when we talk about the evolving masculinity and finding a true passion or finding the things that really light that fire in your brain, you got to keep trying, and then you got to be unapologetically yourself. That is what authenticity is. It's being unapologetically yourself. That's the masculine way to look at it, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And you touched on something, Thomas. When it comes to purpose, I'm a firm believer that as men, we didn't lose it. You find your purpose, so we're looking for it. No, you create your purpose. As men, I think it's very important that we create our purpose. You create your passions, and once you figure that out, because if you go find your purpose. I mean, come on, man. We're simple creatures as men to go out there, and most of us want to solve problems and get things done. So if you're thinking that you're going to find your purpose and it's going to pop up, you're going to be walking and looking for a long time. So if you've got something that you want to create, albeit a purpose, a passion, whatever, that's what as men, it's especially masculine men, that's what we have to do for ourselves and our family, and then it can spill over into job, whatever. But I do not like that term finding your purpose. Have you found your purpose? No, because I think as men, it's one of the benefits we get as men to create our purpose. And that's where I think it's really good to be in communities like we have at the Men of Now, because you get to meet people from all walks of life, all different levels, some of them that might be where you want to be, and you get to explore how they got there, and you get to learn the steps that they took, and you can create a better plan. So that's why, it as men, it's kind of hard to be that vulnerable man to ask for help or express what you really want, but you don't know how to get there. But when you have a tight-knit community like we have at Men of Now, it helps and speeds up that process.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because Thomas, when we talk about this evolving masculinity, there you are. There you're not. There you are.
Okay. You guys can see me?
No, we can hear you. You're all good. I understand you were having technical issues. But how important is it then when we talk about evolving masculinity and becoming the best man possible? How important is it to have a community like Men of Now or any other type of community? I know coaching is very important, but like, how important is having a coach? How important is it having a community? How important is it to have a friend or have friends? Because I know like a lot of times people say, oh, like I'm just an introvert, and so like I just don't talk to a lot of people. Like, how important are all these types of different things?
Oh my gosh. I mean, wait, can you guys see? You guys can see me, right?
Yeah, you're all good, and we can hear
Okay.
you.
Yeah, my browser is just being funky, but I mean, I'll sum it up with sharing an experience. When I was struggling with addiction, I didn't know who to talk to where I could feel safe. And that's something that is so important for men. It's weird, right? Because we talk about like the importance of being strong and assertive, right? And in order for us to get to that next evolution of being more complete, or the Superman, or whatever you want to use, we need to be able, like I said, to practice our expression of our very humanity. And it's best served when we're in a safe place, because if we are hurt or it's used against us, you may never see that version come out ever again. So when I was struggling with addiction and I didn't know really where to go, I ended up going to recovery meeting. I didn't know what to expect, and I had no other place to go, so I just shared what was on my heart and how much pain I was experiencing. And yeah, there was tears and snot, and just like, it was absolutely messy, but it was 1000% completely me at that time, even if I was a shell of myself and completely broken and experiencing rock bottom. And the response that I received from people saying, you're going to be okay. It's all good. Come back. We love you here. Like, you have support here. It changed something in me, because I had never shared so openly and so expressively before like that. And not once did I get any sense that I was going to be hurt or taken advantage of, or it was going to be used against me at a later time. Yeah. And it empowered me to seek those type of people on a regular basis. And so if you can find an environment, a group, or even one person, one other man, where you can share the way that you feel compelled to share, and know that you can do that without being hurt, you're going to have the training wheels taken off. You're going to have the chain released from your legs, and you're going to be able to freely express yourself without that worry. And you're going to start to experience what you're capable of when you allow yourself to expand your emotional spectrum. So when I say, like, and it doesn't matter if it's a free community, a paid community, if you get a mentor, a big brother, you pay for coaching, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I've seen it firsthand across all of those various things that I just mentioned. When men are able to cultivate and learn about themselves and grow and express themselves in those type of environments, those relationships, those partnerships, oh my gosh, like their evolution as a man and as a human being accelerates, like it exponentially increases, because they now can live and express themselves and be in the practice of doing so without getting hurt, which then prepares them for when they go outside of those environments, when there is a chance that maybe someone may attack them, they're not going to be as fallible because they've built the reps inside of a safer environment to be able to go out there and be able to handle it in a more technically unsafe environment. And so I can't stress enough the importance of finding those people, keeping them close, and then being in the practice of doing that. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. I just want to speak on this real quick, Kevin. That was the moment that kind of changed my life. When we talk about levels of consciousness, because I've dealt with some addiction myself, dealt with a lot of crap throughout my life. And the moment that I was able to be open and honest, not just with myself, but then to another, the weight that gets removed off of you and the space that it creates for you to truly be yourself is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And then the sky's the limit from there.
Yeah, definitely finding oneself is imperative to growing and evolving, I believe. But, like you said, Thomas, when you first, personally, you felt like you were hitting rock bottom, you wanted change. So you sought out a group, and like you said, you didn't know what to expect, probably nervous as hell. Didn't, and I equate that to going to the gym. Okay. I'm a member of Planet Fitness. I don't make any bones about it, but I travel a lot for work and there's always a Planet Fitness around. And I know that I'm going to be probably in the top 10% of all the guys in there, but I've never been to that gym before. So I get nervous when I walk in there because I don't know where the leg press machine is. I don't know where the dip bar is. So I'm apprehensive, but once I get in there and I get going around and I might even meet somebody, I feel more comfortable. Taking that first step is probably the hardest, especially as men, because a lot of people, especially men, mistake stoicism and masculinity for something that you have to be hard. Nothing can affect you. You're supposed to be a tough, assertive guy all the time. However, that's not true masculinity. True masculinity is doing what needs to be done, providing, but also having the confidence to seek out the things that you need in life and ask the questions. And if you don't like the answers, that's fine. You move on to the next person or the next group, but at least you made the attempt. And a lot of men don't want to do that because of fear of being judged, maybe fear of failure, trying too hard and not making it. But that's what holds most men back today. And believe it or not, I think that's emasculating to a man to not have the ability to seek out assistance and a group, a mentor that can help get you there and just trying to do it on your own. Because then when you fail and you only try to do it on your own, it makes your confidence that much lower.
I would say that revealing weakness in the right situation is the greatest sign of strength.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Go to a Tony Robbins event. Man, within the first 30 minutes, I had cried more in that 30 minutes than I did in the last 5 years, but we were in an environment where everybody was there with an open mind. Everybody was like-minded, and it's a very powerful event, and there's no judgment. And when you find a group like that there was no judgment, whether you're a man, woman, female, and you're crying because something one of the speakers said hit you from maybe a past experience or maybe something you're lacking in your life, and there was no judgment, that's great. And that's at the men of now, there is no judgment. You're not going to get always told what you think you want to hear, but there is no judgment, especially for your failures. We get down to the root of the problem and we try it differently. and we see what works.
Love what you said, man. That was the removal of judgment is so vital to know that you're in a great community of growth and development, right? And that's the place where you can thrive and get your practice in of communicating and expressing yourself. You know, I think one of the things that a lot of my clients struggle with, and it's funny that you mentioned Tony Robbins, right? Because one of the things that he does first thing in the morning is he jumps into a cold plunge. And part of the reason that he has been doing this for, I don't know, over 2 decades now, when cold plunging wasn't even a trend, is he taught himself to not negotiate with himself, right? Like he doesn't get himself ready to go into the cold plunge. He literally gets up, goes right in, because he doesn't want to allow his brain to intervene in what he needs to do. And he's disciplined himself to do that. One of the things I've noticed with a lot of my clients and a lot of men that I engage with is that they allow themselves to negotiate with themselves. Right. And typically when you enter negotiations, you're not going to beat your mind if you don't have that internal fortitude to defend yourself against a powerful mind that wants to talk you out of doing the thing. So what better place for you to learn how to develop the internal fortitude so you can not only win the negotiation against your mind, but completely surpass it than being around men who want that for themselves, but also want to see you have it for yourself and then be able to do it in a judgment-free place. Like that's where it's at, you know? And so I'm so grateful. I mean, it's been 6+ years of being sober, 6+ years of being surrounded by incredible men, and 6+ years of learning and learning how to, through them and their stories and what they've gone through, so I can become a better man myself. And so it's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing when you're able to be around men who want better for themselves and for other people, not just for themselves, but for those around them and for generations to come, right? Like the things that we're doing, the conversation we're having here, guys, like it's the kind of conversation that potentially could change the trajectory of at least our lineage, like our future lineage, right? And so I'm really grateful that we get to keep having these conversations. And I would encourage anyone who wants to even explore what that could look like for them to reach out to who you can to see what that can look like for you.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. I know that for me, I thought I was grown up, but I didn't realize that I had so much more to do until I started getting connected with guys like you. It really was when I did that back in, I guess we're going back to 2020 now, when I first was like, you know what, I'm going to dive into one of these internet communities and with these coaches and see what's going on. Once I did that, oh my God, the amount of maturity that has come, the amount of stability that's come, the amount of satisfaction that's come out of life. And it's all because of that I had this beautiful, brilliant girlfriend and future wife and this family that we're moving towards. We just went ahead and got everything set for a new place. We're going to be moving next month. And the place is so nice. Just everything in life gets better. Everything in life gets better when you surround yourself with people that have the same type of mentality. But you won't even know that unless you go out there and search. You know, you got to explore. And a lot of times people always say, well, I don't know where to go. Well, yeah, it's not like, I hate using the Edison example because of Tesla and light bulb, whatever. But let's just pretend that Edison actually did own everything with the light bulb. Conspiracy theorists. So when you think about like Edison, he didn't just like hit it on the first try. He didn't get the light bulb on the first try. It took a lot of time, and he obviously had his own scientific community and his assistants before he was able to get there. So if he didn't have that support network, would he have ever invented the light bulb? I would say no. And so that's what's really important is you just need to find the right people that click with you, run on the same wavelength as you. And then when you're running on the same wavelength as other people, it propels all of you together.
Yeah. And you can see that. I mean, even Edison, that example, but look at the top dogs now. You know, Elon Musk, richest man in the world, even Jeff Bezos. Look at all these guys. They never stop. They never say, okay, I've reached this point, I'm done. They think, okay, well, I'm right here. How can I evolve and do something better? And that's something I told myself, you know, because people were talking about, well, why are you getting certifications at 46 years old? Because I want to continue learning and I want to continue evolving to be better. And I don't ever want that to stop. Even if I retire one day, which I don't see that ever happening, fully stepping away from everything, I always want to continue bettering myself. So that way I can pass that down. And what's really cool about it is Men of Now has been going on for about a year and a half now. And some of the guys that were with us in the beginning that they were learning, now they're becoming mentors. And it's so fucking cool to see that shit. You know, guys that we were explaining, now they're the ones that are giving advice and sharing experiences of wins and losses and what they did differently the next time. And it is such a beautiful thing to see.
That's the best. That's the best, man. You know, when you get the gift of your own personal fulfillment or your increase of internal power, you have a great opportunity to be able to then give it back, right? And you get to share it. And that's the best. That's the best, you know? And what you guys are doing, and there's other people out there who are doing some amazing things. I mean, that's what we're cultivating. I mean, that's the only way that's going to create that next level of masculine support and evolution so that we can have more of us out there, you know? Like one of the big reasons why I do what I do today is because I want to leave a legacy of powerful masculine leadership in the world so my daughter can roam free and do what she's meant to do in the world peacefully and safely, right? And so like we all got to do our part to make that happen, you know? And part of it is just bringing awareness that this conversation can lead to an evolution beyond your wildest imagination around what masculinity can be, not what people think it's supposed to be and not what it's marketed to be. There's so much more that's available to us as men that people than what people lead us to believe, you know? And like you, Kevin, like I will not stop learning for the pursuit of hitting that next level.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that so many guys, especially young guys, they get stuck in that. You know, they get married, they have a kid, so they think, okay, I'll go work at this, you know, dead end job. It pays enough to pay the bills, keep the lights on. I'll be pissed off every day because I hate said job. And they never have that date with themselves, and they never want to level up because they get comfortable in just getting by when they have so much potential to go so much further. And taking a few risks every now and then is a great thing, especially for a man. But talking about evolution, it's great because it goes right along with the book that I'm writing. It's No Pill Nation, evolving from red pill ideology, because that's how I got into this space, is watching a lot of red pill content on YouTube and then joining a total red pill group. And I noticed that after about 6 months, a year in that group, it never evolved. It never changed. It was always woman bad. You know, she's not yours. It's just your turn. You know, women don't care about your struggles. They wait at the finish line and fuck the winners. And I was like, okay, so what's next? Okay, I got that. You know, women are bad. You know, they all got these traits. What's next? I'm ready to learn. And it didn't. There was nothing. There was not a next step. And so that's when I was like, okay, yeah, it's time for me to leave this group. I'm going to evolve with myself. And then we got hooked up with Alex, which has become one of my best friends. Josh, the same thing. We've had some other guys kind of come and go, but they're still really good friends of mine that have the same mindset that, okay, we learned some things from the red pill space that we can take with us, but it's time to evolve. And it's time to take it to the next step as men, to keep learning and evolve from a certain ideology to something better.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is such a good conversation. I feel like I could talk for forever. We got to do this again sometime, but we have been going for a while, so I think we should wrap up here. Kevin, do you want to plug what you're doing this weekend, and then how people can sign up for Men of Now?
Yeah, we are live right now, and we are taking new memberships for a short period of time. So if you're interested in exploring a men's community online, menofnow.us/enroll. Go ahead and sign up there. You'll get a conversation off YouTube, off of that, a private conversation with myself, Alex, Josh, all three, or maybe just one of us. And we'll start talking about maybe what your goals are for the next 6 months to a year, and see if they align with what we do at the Men of Now. And if they don't, no problem. We have a lot of allies in this space. We are the best. They suck. So if you don't fit particularly with Men of Now, we've got several other groups we can probably point you in the right direction. So that's your first step, menofnow.us/enroll. That gets the ball rolling. We have a webinar series. I've got one coming up. I'm a financial coach, so it's going to be square one. This is going to be 101. If you already have a brokerage account, you already know the difference between a Roth and a traditional type of IRAs, that kind of stuff. It might not be your cup of tea, but since we're starting from the ground zero on this one's going to be on basic investing. So if it's something that you've never done other than maybe a 401k with your work, you might want to check it out, because I take you from 101, how to start investing, the different types of securities, and we'll finish it up with how you can turn that into long-term wealth. But that's going to be, we don't have a date for that yet, but if you go to
we're doing it this Sunday, right?
Yeah, we are doing this Sunday. I didn't know we said that in stone, but we had talked about that. So yeah, it will be this Sunday. Go ahead and sign up. This one's on me. It's going to be completely free to anybody that wants to join. Okay. However, if you're not a member or you're not in one of the communities, the Q&A at the end and during will not be available to you. So it'll just be basically a read only, but it will still be very beneficial for you.
Nice.
Awesome. Final thoughts, Thomas, on this topic?
I feel like guys are, the reason why I think we are having this conversation is because guys are searching for answers, right? And I wonder, like, what are the questions that they're asking? Right? Like, and I think if we can identify what those questions are, I think we can lead these men to better answers, but we do know that guys are seeking answers. They're seeking for a way because they know they are now realizing that there is more out there than what they've been led to believe. And so if you feel like you feel that way, chances are you're right. So be relentless in your pursuit of the answers that you are looking for. And I think you have a greater chance of doing it not alone, being within a community, being with other men who, like you, are looking for answers. And I think the last thing I'll say is continue to push the limits of what you believe you're capable of, and trust the process of it being a little messy before it gets really polished, before it really gets to the level that you want it to. Like, to keep it super, super simple, like Steph Curry has taken and probably sank well over 2 million shots in his life. I don't know the exact numbers, but if you were to look to see how many three-pointers he's hit in the league, it pales in comparison. I think it's like 0.1% or something like that, right? Like only 0.1% of those 2 million shots that he's taken in his lifetime have mattered. So why I'm sharing that with you is, like, take as many shots as you possibly can, because the ones that matter are going to be the ones that actually are going to make an impact on your life. So don't be afraid to keep shooting until you are in the situation where it actually matters. And I think that's what the important thing. Like, don't negotiate with yourself, just do it. And do it with people who you can trust and you can be safe with. So when you practice, you just develop the thing. I mean, I'm saying the same things I've been saying the whole night, but I'm saying it just for the repetitious nature for you to understand that it can be that simple, even if it's not easy, but that is the path.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that, man. That do not negotiate with yourself. That's, man, I am going to use that, but I will definitely give you a mention every time I do, Thomas. Because too many men do it. They talk themselves out of opportunities because they negotiate with themselves. And stop. I mean, that's the best way to put it.
That's right.
So Thomas, the link that I have down below, theprofessionalwingman.com/start. Do you want to explain that for everybody?
Yeah. So, I've evolved in what I'm able to coach people on over the years. Been doing this for 16 years. I mean, I started in dating and social skills. And then when clients got into relationships, I did relationships, and they got into marriage, and then I did marriage. And then it's just evolved, right? You're able to use these skills across various aspects of your life. And so once people got into relationships, they wanted to seek greater fulfillment in the other areas of their lives. So when you go to the professionalwingman.com/start, it's going to ask you a simple question, which is essentially like, what area of your life needs the most focus? Is it dating and relationships, or is it something else? And whichever button you click, it's going to take you to a series of questions that you'll answer. Shouldn't take any more than a couple minutes. And the result that you'll get is going to be not only, you'll actually get like, why am I blanking on the word? Basically, it's a presentation to give you exactly what you need to either get into a relationship or to live what I call an iconic life. Like, if you're to use these principles, you will create success in your life. And if you feel like with those tools, you could use some support, there'll be an opportunity for you to connect with either me or one of my team members, and we can figure out what kind of game plan you need to get to the next level of whatever area you want to focus on. So start there.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, guys, this was an amazing conversation. Thomas, we got to have you back on sometime. You are a wealth of knowledge. Obviously, we've known each other for a while. And guys, seriously, if Thomas resonates with you, he knows what he's talking about. So definitely check out the information there. Yeah, man, this was a lot of fun, and it was an absolute pleasure to have you on.
I appreciate you guys
thank you so much, Thomas. We got to do this again.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you guys for having me on too, man. I love these conversations. I love chopping it up with you guys, so anytime, man, you guys let me know.
Absolutely. All right. Sounds good. Well, with that, thank you everybody for tuning in. Definitely, if you want to sign up for Men of Now, I put that link in there as well in the comments. And this is going to be fun on Sunday, Kevin, when we do the finance coaching.
Yeah. It's going to be a great webinar. It's going to be straight to the point, but I am so looking forward to it, especially for our members. And then we've got our monthly behind the paywall meeting after that, or we're going to do it before that, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
I always look forward to that now.
Awesome. Let's thrive in 2025, gentlemen. With that, peace out.